Simon Pound with that report. Neville, Peter King's the guy that New Zealanders have always loved to love. The guy's got a shed and he's making things. I sense that we're not quite there with, say, property investors. Is that a problem? Do these people have to be loved?
Global businesses start in sheds, there's no question about that. And if somebody in America saw that, they'd probably buy him out.
But he doesn't want to grow. He doesn't want to grow. He doesn't want to be rich. He just wants to make his acetates and ship them around the world.
You'd think he'd work out a way of making two at the same time, you know, and that's the way you have innovation, and that's a sure way to make money.
Oh, I think he does. He has two lathes. It's not mass production. Bridget, is there a difference in attitude, do you think, towards old and new money? Because I presume you come into contact with both in your job.
That's a really good question. Broadly speaking, no money speaks very loudly, and generally speaking, in my small, rather nasty world, sometimes money alone counts. But having said that, people with money do rate old money higher, I think. But they're a very, very small percentage.
Is it possible to pass from one to the other? Can you be new money and then become establishment?
Yeah, but tick-tock, it takes time.
Takes time. Yeah. Lila, what's wrong with wealth anyway? Because it certainly looks, if you read the media this year and if you look at the polls, it looks like people actually quite fancy a wealthy man as Prime Minister.
Well, I think that's largely coincidental, and there's a lot of, myth making around this. I mean, I always find the State House story interesting because, of course, in the time when John Key grew up in State House, so did lots of ordinary working class people. State houses weren't for the deeply impoverished as they are now. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with wealth. The problem is the extremes of wealth that we're now experiencing here in New Zealand, which is foreign and which is largely a creation of the kind of public policy that we've had for the last 20 years. It's not because these people are cleverer than people were before. It's because there's an environment that's allowed them to accumulate huge amounts of wealth, often at other people's expense.
She should be on one of Mr. King's records. It sounds a bit broken, though.
Oh, Neville. No. Can you say that we've succeeded economically if there is this rump of the very poor?
If we followed Lila's advice, we wouldn't have Trade Me, would we, and Sam Morgan?
Absolutely wrong, Neville. I mean, that is the kind of entrepreneurship and enterprise that people do appreciate. But, was it worth $700 million? That is where the wealth was generated from. And, the idea that these sort of pursuits around transacting money are somehow worthy and make you very intelligent, I think is highly questionable. And we should celebrate productive wealth. We should have regulation that encourages wealth to be put into productive areas, unlike most of the areas that many of these new rich are engaging in.
So we come back to this point that New Zealanders are more inclined to admire public figures who have amassed wealth if they've also done something else, if they're also Sam Morgan, they're also Peter Jackson. Well, do you think that is how we look at wealth?
Oh yes, if you want to be in the Business Hall of Fame, which is really a qualitative measure of wealth, you have to have created a business but also put a lot back into the community, and that's got 100 people in it now.
Yeah, but if you look at the ads in here, you've got an ad for a Gulfstream jet in here. I mean, do you really think that the company is going to sell one as a result of having an ad, or is this just symbolism?
Well, think of it from Graham Hart's point of view. He's got a global business, probably the only global business owned by a New Zealander, and he has to fly, and based in New Zealand, and he has to get his executives around from each of these pulp and paper mills and other things that employ tens of thousands of workers, I don't know.
But I would think there would be a lot of direct marketing companies sending everyone on your list. Offers for new cars.
Well, you see, you could put the head around. You see, these people all know each other, so you could share on a jet, and that'd get you to the rugby on time. Yeah. You wouldn't have to go speeding through Ashburton.
This is an establishment, though. This year's Rich List looks a lot like last year's one. Is it going to change much? Because the shape of New Zealand society is changing. We have different cultures coming in, including people from mainland China who, back home, are really keen on wealth accumulation. Is that going to change?
That's a big gap in the Rich List, is Asian wealth in New Zealand.
When are you going to start finding that? Because it's pretty white.
Well, very much so. But as I said at the start of the program, it's pretty hard to hide the wealth, but Chinese are pretty successful at it so far.
Last word from you, Bridget.
The Rich List when it comes out, it's the ultimate Bible for husband hunters.
I think we can make our own judgments about that. Well, that is all we have time for this week. Thanks to our guests, Neville Gibson, Bridget Saunders and Lila Hurray. And thank you for watching. We'll be back at the same time next week with Media 7. Until then, goodbye.